Hi. Mark chapter 8, and I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm going to read for you verses 31 through 34 in Mark chapter 8. It says this, "And then he," that being Jesus, "began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he said all this quite openly, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, 'Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things.' He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, 'If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me.'" Listen, this is Jesus being very clear about what he is willing to do for people. He says, "I'm willing to die for people." And Peter immediately is like, "No." And Jesus, in very, very strong words, "Get behind me, Satan." Very strong words, lets Peter know very clearly that he's being selfish. Jesus is thinking about other people, and Peter's thinking only about himself. And then he calls everybody together. He says, "You have to take up your cross and follow me." In today's lingo, I guess, it would be, lace up your sandals, hitch up your britches, and follow me. Do what I'm doing. This is, Jesus says, "Take up your cross." That is very much about suffering and sacrifice. I was recently listening to a podcast, and the guy on there, he was a pastor, and he was at one of his first leadership meetings at his new church, and he went over their core values, and their number one core value was to share the good news of Jesus with people. And so he looked around and he asked, by show of hands, how many people have shared Jesus with someone this month? And nobody raised their hand. And he was like, "All right, then meeting over," right? If we aren't even doing core value number one, then what's the point? And so he said, go do core value number one, share Jesus with people. People need to hear the message we have to know the Jesus we know. It's very important. I recently read an article that someone shared online about middle-aged people dying what they termed deaths of despair. These are deaths by suicide or deaths because of alcoholism or some other addiction. And what the authors noted was that as religious interaction amongst people goes down, these deaths of despair go up. So people are dying while we have the words of life. People are feeling despair while we have a message of hope. And the question is, what are we going to do about it? And Jesus says, "Take up your cross and follow." Or I said, "Lace up your sneakers and go do something." It is so easy for us to be like Peter and think of ourselves, what we're comfortable with. But Jesus is clear, when we're called into the family of God, things are going to get uncomfortable. And in Mark chapter 8, this is the halfway point of Mark. Jesus says, "Hey, look, I'm going to die for people. What are you going to do for people?" Listen, all of us know someone who could hear the words of Jesus and find some hope. I mean, it's not just middle-aged people dying these deaths of despair. If you've been watching the news in the last few years, it's young people. It's everybody. Everybody is feeling this hopelessness. And we have words of hope. We have the gospel. We have the good news. So that's where Jesus leaves his disciples at the end of Mark chapter 8. He's like, "Look, you're following me, but if you really want to follow me, you better be willing to step away from what makes you comfortable and start interacting with the world the way I'm interacting with it." And the way I'm interacting with it is I'm willing to die for people. That's big words, man. That's big words. So chew on that today. I hope you're having a great week. Keep reading, keep studying. Find hope. Love you guys. Have a great day.